So we're a little past the midway point here. Alabama's got a bye week. Let's review the season a little bit and also talk some recruiting on Locked On Bama today.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Busy, but man, enjoying the off week, though, frankly. I needed this break.
Yeah, I think we all did. I mean, as fans, if you're a true fan, you get so invested. You can use a little R&R yourself. I mean, there's no doubt I could. I mean, I need R&R all the time anyway. But want to thank BetOnline for being the sponsor of this particular podcast. We'll talk about BetOnline in just a little bit. Also want a big shout out to Mac Million, MAKMAILLION. He won this hat right here. Mac, if you're watching the podcast again, I sent you something on YouTube, and I gave you my Twitter handle and email, but I need you to send me your info so I can send you the hat. Again, I'm going to send it to you free of charge. I'm going to give some more stuff away eventually. Okay, so everybody hang with us. I'm not going to do it every podcast, but I'll give some more Locked On paraphernalia away shortly, as soon as I get some more. So, anywho.
You win a car, you win a car, you win a car, you win a car.
I thought it'd be kind of cool just to let's go back over the season, the first 8 games.
Yeah.
And maybe as we go through these, we can get a better feel, taking a bird's eye view of where we are as a team. And of course, you go back to Utah State, Alabama wins 55-0. But for whatever reason, and again, maybe I'm being a bit of a revisionist, I seem to remember being not thoroughly impressed with the 55-0 win. I remember thinking, okay, that it was good. I mean, you beat somebody 55-0, that's good. It didn't feel like we were playing up to our expectation, though. Again, maybe I demand too much. I have no problem saying that. Nick Saban has spoiled me to death, but it didn't feel like we were a well-oiled machine at the time.
I think what I take from that game today is I think we all thought Utah State was better than that. And that is not to say that the game, we expected the game to be close or tight, but Utah State finished in the top 25 last year. They returned a bunch of starters, and they're just having a terrible season. They're just not good at all. But 55-0, I mean, sort of speaks for itself to me. I mean, in terms of we thoroughly dominated an opponent that should have been thoroughly dominated, and we did.
And again, that's true. And so I feel so stupid sometimes when I say, like, oh, not an impressive 55-0 win. It just didn't feel like we were all that sharp. But we wrote it off as like, okay, at the time, I remember.
Some people weren't happy with the offensive line in that game. Some people. I mean, in terms of some I do remember that blowback, I guess you'd say. Also, we didn't run the ball great. So, I mean, in terms of like, were there any signs in this game and we're still dealing with those issues? I would say, yeah, we didn't run the ball very well.
Yeah, and now looking back on that game, it makes sense where we are. The blocking still isn't great. The running game still isn't great. So you move on to Texas, right? I went to that game. It was hot as – good Lord, it was hot. I don't know what to tell you other than it was just really hot. And outside of, the first drive where Jahmyr Gibbs had some nice runs on the first possession, and then an 80-yard run by Jace McClellan, we didn't run the ball real well there either. Of course, the last drive, Bryce Young made some things happen with his legs, but those weren't by design. And so I guess now we're beginning to see a pattern, and we sort of wrote it off at the time as, hey, look, it was 11 o'clock game. It was hot, and, you play your worst a couple times a year and your best a couple times a year. This hopefully is one of our worst. I think it turns out that, okay, this was closer to being one of our worst games. I don't think it was one of our worst games, though. That's what's kind of scary to me.
Well, I mean, a lot of things stand out to me about this game, but number one, we beat a good team on the road. I think Texas has proven this season that they're a good team. Are they great? Are they top 10? Are they a championship contender? No, but they're a good team and still managed to beat them. I get the feeling Texas sort of played out of their minds that day too. That was Texas at their best effort. But in terms of what carried forward to this day from that game for me, Luke, was just Bryce, and how I think, as crazy as it sounds, maybe the numbers aren't what they were, but Bryce is a better player this year than he was a year ago when he won the Heisman Trophy. He's improved. He's better. And there is absolutely no question whatsoever that Alabama won that game because of Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree with you on that statement about Bryce being better this year. I mean, he certainly had more help. And again, I've mentioned this. Last year, it was, okay, I'm in a pinch. I'm going to heave it all I've got, and Jamison Williams will run under it.
Right.
I can't overthrow him. And this year, we've seen him overthrow some people. And again, I don't necessarily know that it's his fault. Some of it is maybe the timing isn't there, and the chemistry isn't there. So I think that's okay. But anyway, I think you're absolutely right that he is a better quarterback this year than he was last year. Then you do La Monroe, and look, all of a sudden, because really, I think at this point, had we not created any turnovers yet, or just hadn't had an interception? Maybe we just
almost no. If there had been a turnover, it might be like one. I know there were no interceptions. I mean, even through that third game where we crush Monroe, and I think probably played our best game, at that time, and maybe to this day, maybe our best game against Monroe in week 3.
Yeah, and then of course we no sense in going through that. Of course, the interception was by Will Anderson, oddly enough. Then you have the Vanderbilt game. You win 55-3. Not a lot of anything remarkable there either. Then you go to Arkansas. And, boy, I know we ended up winning 49-26. When I look at this score and realize we won 49-26, I'm like, it doesn't feel like we won 49-26 because it was 28-23 kind of late in the game. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates opened. But we did win 49-20. Was it 26 or 23? I think 26. So, yeah, that's just that game's so weird. And that's when things started to, get a little dicey because obviously the injury to Bryce. And then, of course, you got Texas A&M, which wasn't too terribly long ago. And we just didn't look that good. And now that game against A&M, I'm really hoping that was a game where A&M just put all their marbles into the let's beat Alabama again basket, because this Texas A&M team is not good. They're not together. They're a weird bunch. They just don't have any chemistry among themselves. They don't seem to have a lot of team pride, and they were right there to beat us. And I know we had a backup quarterback, and that certainly does. That's a whole nother podcast where you can talk about how important the quarterback is. But we should have beaten that bunch by more than that.
Well, I think Texas A&M and the Texas games are similar to me in this way, Luke. While neither team is special, while neither team is great, and Texas A&M is going to end up with a really bad record and sort of a mess on their hands, I think everyone should agree or could agree that with the dudes that they have on the team and the talent they have on the team, when they do put it all together, they're pretty daunting. I mean, I don't think talent is necessarily the number one issue at either place. I think it's culture and other things, but when they do play well, they're tough to beat because they do have a lot of good players, both teams. But what stands out to me about Arkansas and A&M together, those two games are intricately intertwined to me. And those were the Milroe games. I mean, Bryce got hurt against Arkansas. Those were Milroe's games to win or lose. And at the time, I just think there's just way too much gnashing of teeth over that, because as I bring up all the time, I want to see one of these other teams that are contending for a national championship. I want to see them beat conference opponents with their number 2 quarterback. Let's see it, because At the same time, Alabama lost Bryce, Kentucky lost Levis, and Kentucky lost to South Carolina. They would never lose to South Carolina with Will Levis at quarterback. Arkansas loses KJ Jefferson for a game. They lose, with their backup. Alabama doesn't lose. They win, and yet fans were treating really specifically the A&M game, but even Arkansas to a degree like it was a loss. I think it's actually impressive that Alabama could beat conference opponents with the backup quarterback, not only a backup quarterback, but a freshman who frankly just isn't ready to be a starting quarterback in this league just yet. I think that might come next year for him, but he wasn't ready yet. Alabama won anyway.
No, that's all good points. And of course, look, we just recently talked about the Tennessee game, and obviously just this week we've talked about Mississippi State. So I think we can let those go. I can't talk about Tennessee. I'm not ready to talk about Tennessee anymore. I'm just not ready for it. I mean, I'm still Gary Harris, who's a friend of mine. He does a lot of stuff with the AHSA sometimes, and he has a show in Tuscaloosa. He hosts Tider Insider with Rodney Orr. Good dude, big Alabama guy, obviously. Apparently, he had his show maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was still losing it about Tennessee. I had a guy call into our show and talk about it, and he said it's just you can tell Alabama fans just aren't ready to. We have not healed from some of those issues on the Tennessee game. But I need to tell everybody about Sweat Block. Look, if you've ever gone on a first date, if you've ever gone on a second date, if you've ever gotten married or gotten divorced, if you've ever taken a test, if you've ever had a job interview, sometimes you might have a sweat issue. Look, everybody does. It's okay. It's no big whoop. It's all part of being a human being. Sweat Block is there to help you out. Look, I want to tell you about Pamela, and we'll keep her last name anonymous. Pamela would hide in the office bathroom every 30 minutes to dry off her armpits so no one would see the wet circles or under her arms. She finally has her life back because of Sweat Block. It makes a difference. Look, when you go in there and there's always never let them see you sweat, because when they see you sweat, they think they got you. So you need Sweat Block to help you stop sweating. Sweat Block wipes were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. If there's somebody who knows about heat, it's firefighters. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block. Save 20% with promo code Locked On. That's 2 words, promo code Locked On at sweatblock.com. This is also available at Amazon. Sweat Block is. So go check them out, sweatblock.com. Promo code Locked On. Doesn't get any easier than that. And you don't want to be running around all sweaty, so go get you some Sweat Block. All right, Jimmy, let's talk a little recruiting here. BetOnline put out their nuggets about this. I know you at On 3, you guys have put out some stuff about this past weekend. Of course, the Montgomery Cats were there, James Smith and Qua Russaw. I watched them the other night, by the way. They played on a Thursday night, and sheesh, these 2 dudes, man. I mean, they are 5 stars among 5 stars. They are Smith is great, and I think Smith may have the most potential of the 2. Russaw may be the most ready to play right now based on what I've seen. He's his speed, his quickness, his anticipation, his awareness, all those things just stand out to me. But Smith's right there too. I'm not trying to dog either one of them because both of them are awesome. And luckily they're going to be a package deal. And I say luckily because I do think they both end up at Alabama. Do you?
I do. Still optimistic there. In this NIL age and this new world of recruiting, I never was a fan of the phrase, lock even before all this. So you'll hardly ever hear me say, use the word, they're locks, and they're not locks, not even for Alabama. You never know what's going to happen. Somebody could swoop in with $100 million before December, in this crazy world. But, no, if I was wagering, I say Smith and Russaw to Alabama, and it'd be huge. I just absolutely huge for multitudes of reasons. But they're in state. You sort of win the state when you win those 2. They're impactful. They're at impactful positions. They're in the positions that Alabama needs guys. The defensive front 7. That's where Alabama needs to finish strong. Smith and Russaw are those two guys, and just the how quality of a prospect they are, both totally legitimately ranked where they are. All the big programs in the nation want them both. But yeah, I think it'll be Alabama for both James Smith and Qua Russaw, and wow, that'll be huge for Alabama down the stretch. They're likely to be late decisions. Won't surprise me at all, Luke, if they're signing day decisions, frankly.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I guess mildly concerns me. I mean, I think if you're a recruit right now, you look at Alabama. I mean, Alabama's kind of a no-brainer. But what does mildly concern me is Auburn's going to get them a new coach, and whoever that new coach is, let's assume. I mean, look, I don't know who it'll be, but let's say it's a Primetime or Hugh Freeze or something like that. A person that probably has some charisma that can recruit. My guess is they will go all in on those two guys, all in immediately, and it may be one of those things where the last impression may be the best impression.
Right.
I think it makes a lot more sense for them to go to Alabama. There's no doubt about it. I mean, yeah, I'm a homer, but I think, look, NFL draft stock and everything else proves me right.
I think Qua grew up an Auburn fan, by the way. Qua did.
Oh, really?
I don't think James did. I mean, I think Quay's like a natural, like, hey, I've always rooted for Auburn. I agree with you, Luke. Alabama fans just blow that off, but they're not remembering that Brian Horson's not going to be the coach when the season ends. They're going to have a new coach, and whenever there's a new coach, there's excitement. There's optimism. I mean, behind every new hire, there's optimism and excitement, and we're going to win. And guess what? The new Auburn coaches, he's probably going to fully fund NIL. And secondly, playing time. Don't go to Alabama and wait in line 3 years to play. We need true freshmen. We need highly paid true freshman starters. And that's going to be a heck of a, and particularly since they're not going to have much time to decide. You know, they're like, oh, no. Gosh, I mean, I got to make up my mind so quick here. I'm telling you, I'm not saying they're going to Auburn, but I do not rule that out.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to go ahead and talk about BetOnline now. Look, betonline.net is where it's at. Look, you see the banner right below me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can get all the latest odds, news, and scores at betonline.net. It's your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Look, basketball's right here. Look, I've placed some wagers on basketball with BetOnline. It's awesome. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every single game right there at betonline.net. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every single sport there is. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. That's BetOnline because it's where the game starts. Jimmy, I want to talk about Arion Carter here, the linebacker prospect who's committed to Memphis out of Tennessee. He's blowing up on the recruiting circuit. I think he's a 3-star / 4-star. He will eventually be a unanimous 4-star, I believe, maybe a high 4-star. He's got speed for days, and he's beginning to get some crystal balls to Alabama, which I love. I think this guy, he's got a little Ralph Staten in him to me. Maybe I'm overreaching, but I'm going in the Wayback Machine. And this kid just seems like a fantastic sideline to sideline linebacker. Again, great instincts. Big fan of this cat.
Yeah, runner and a hitter. I mean, that's, those are fun linebackers. I mean, a runner and a hitter. But I mean, he can really run. This is a high-end athlete, but he also brings the hat. I mean, he plays a physical brand of football. But is a high-end athlete for the position. To me, he's the modern linebacker, who can play in space. He can rush the passer. He can drop into coverage. He can also play inside the tackle box and physically match up with what you have to match up inside all the traffic. I like the Staten comparison, actually. I think that's actually pretty good. I'll tell you another guy I compare him to, and even though this guy hasn't played much at Alabama, it's still a compliment to me, is a lot of Demoy Kennedy in him, who was also to me a runner and a hitter. I mean, just such a whenever you watch a Demoy, who was really turning into one of Alabama's best special teams players when he got hit, you watch a Demoy run and then you watch him tackle somebody and you're like, man, this guy's a player. It's just with him, I think it's been tough to find the right position. I think Arion Carter's a little bit more of a natural linebacker. I know he's played a lot of running back in high school, but he took to linebacker so quickly and easily. I'll tell you another guy it compares to me, and again, it's a compliment, is Dylan Moses. I think there's some Dylan Moses here just in terms of wow, what an athlete, and he can run, and boy, he'll hit you. So I would be really excited about Arion Carter at Alabama, and I think there's a good chance it happens.
I got to stop just talking about Alabama prospects for a second and talk about what said yesterday. First of all, is it just me, or does Jimbo Fisher always talk like this? You never really know what he's saying because he always just says a bunch of words right back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and you don't know what in the world is happening over here. And then all of a sudden you look over there and he looks mad. And you're like, I'm scared to ask him a question. Isn't that how he talks?
He does. He does. And there are so many words. Eventually words get him in trouble because there's just so many words.
He's got you've heard the term word salad. He's like the Ruby Tuesdays word salad buffet. I mean, he's just got words on top of words. And I guess, eventually some of them come together and they work out. And
it's
you're
like he's always, it's like he's always speed reading the dictionary.
That is true. Well, he had something very odd to say. And boy, this has turned into Locked On A&M the last couple of days, but it's kind of hilarious. And it is it does relate to Alabama in the sense that we play them every single year. He said something today, and I'm not going to say it verbatim because I don't want to look it up right now, but it was essentially, somebody asked him what his recruiting pitch was. And he says, well, what I'm trying to sell is playing time. And also, you're not really trying to pitch anything. You're trying to, and I'm like, well, first of all, you just said you're trying to sell them something, but you're not trying to pitch them something. Then he said, why, who wants to go somewhere that they're winning all the time? Everybody wants to do that. Who wants? I mean, what a terrible idea. I mean, and again, which leads me back to what Nick Saban said this summer, where Nick Saban essentially said they bought all the players. And look, that's a terrible way to phrase it because it's a terrible way to say it. But in essence, it's kind of true because who in their right mind would go play for a man who would say things like that? And you would have to be incentivized some other way.
When I read the quote, Luke, I thought, is he trying to get fired? I mean, isn't how in the world does any fan of A&M like that quote? Who wants to go to a place where all you do is win? So you're intentionally losing the games to make it more appealing to prospects? Is that the plan? Hey, let's go 4-8 and we'll sign anybody we want. And then next year we go 4-8 and we sign back-to-back great classes. Then we're really going to go 4-8 that third year.
Well, hey, if his strategy is, then he ought to be recruiting gangbusters because his team kind of sucks. I'm going to tell you what's going to be
losing. Then Vanderbilt would be signing Alabama's classes every year.
What's interesting about this? In a couple of weeks, Texas A&M travels to Auburn. Call me crazy. I think Auburn wins that game right now. Now, look, Auburn has lost 2 guys in the transfer portal, I think, since this podcast started this morning. But they have lost 2 guys in the transfer portal for real since yesterday. So they may not even have enough to field a team. But A&M's got sort of the same thing going on with the dope smoking thing with South Carolina, then a bunch of injuries. I'm just telling you, it wouldn't shock me at all if it makes no sense. But Auburn could beat Texas A&M. And frankly, even though as a guy that I've always cheered against Auburn no matter the circumstance, I kind of dig it. I kind of would laugh. I can't lose that game, by the way. I don't care who wins. I just care about the loser.
I can't help but think when Harsin saw that one of his kids was in the portal, he called that kid in his dorm room and said, "Hey, it's Coach Harsin." And the kid's like, "Coach, don't talk me out of the portal." And Harsin was just saying, no, I was calling to see if there's room for two in that thing.
Well, I mean, look, if Harsin will just hang out, he can afford his own portal. I mean, he's going to get $15 million not to work. And meanwhile, Jimbo Fisher's like, yeah, you think that's something? I'll get $15 million a year not to work.
No, that's right. And those two are going to be rich and out of work. And they're going to be like the sequel to what was those Night at the Roxbury guys on Saturday Night Live, the guys in the club in their suits, their matching suits, hitting on the ladies. That's going to be Harsin and Fisher with their millions.
That is funny because I've seen so many people on Twitter say, Jimbo Fisher, what an idiot. I'm like, yeah, what an idiot. He's going to get $86 million to not do what they paid him to do.
To not coach. What a job.
To not do. You're so bad at this, we're going to pay you all the money so that you don't do this anymore.
It's like that line in Moneyball, the movie Moneyball. I suppose it was in the book too, but the movie Moneyball when David Justice ended up with the Oakland A's. He'd been with the Yankees, and the Yankees cut him, and Justice was getting paid like $12 million a year, and they cut him. So they owed him all the money, and he ended up playing for the A's, and they're trying to motivate him. And the GM of the A's, Brad Pitt, tells David Justice, "Do you realize the Yankees are paying you $12 million to play against them?"
Yeah.
They're paying you $12 million because they want to play against you. They see that as a huge advantage for themselves.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with we'll probably do some predictions for the weekend, even though Alabama's not involved. So we'll do that tomorrow. Until then, everybody, roll tide.
Roll tide.